Hi, this is Stephen, and this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology, and this is episode 35. And today we're going to look at Donald Trump's astrology, his transits, also the transits of the upcoming election, November 3rd. I'm going to use that kind of examination also to give just a little quick lessons on what are called declinations. And then we'll get into some markets. Instead of the usual markets that I look at, I'm going to include some extra cryptocurrencies, Ethereum and EOS, and then sort of make a comment about a stock security fund called Grayscale, which is another option that people have for at least getting some exposure to cryptocurrencies. It's not the best exposure, but you do have that option. Okay, here's Trump's astrology, and as usual, his natal chart is in the center here, and the current transits, at least for April 18th, which is today, are in this outer ring, and we are looking at the relationships created between the two. Well, right now he has the transiting Pluto-Jupiter conjunction that is located right there. It is opposite his natal Venus-Saturn. Okay. Now, generally speaking, this is a positive transit for him because of the Jupiter placement. He has a strong Jupiter in his chart. Jupiter is right here in his second house. Second house deals with values, acquisitions, money, wealth, and very close to the day that he was born, Jupiter was stationary, which adds extra strength to that planet whenever you see it close to a station close to a person's birth chart. In addition, his Jupiter is 120 degrees away from Uranus, which is right there. And if you've been watching my videos, I am of the belief that if you have a fairly close conjunction or a planet fairly close to the sun on the day that you're born, and it's leading the sun as it is here, then there is extra accent and strength to that particular planet. And in this case, it's Uranus, which gives, for Trump, he's just sort of one of a kind. He's just very unconventional, unusual, quirky, eccentric. Those are all related to a strong Uranus, okay? It also lends itself to being sort of up on the latest technology to a certain extent. And so here you've got a guy in his, well into his 70s who knows how to use social media. I mean, he's a communicator, and he knows how to access, millions of people doing that. So I see that as being, very much reflected in this placement of Uranus. And having it at 120 degrees away from Jupiter right here, I could draw a little something here. So there we go. Having it 120 degrees lends itself to being successful in dealing with sort of that mass communication that's more, that's very high-tech or contemporary. Well, I'm pointing this out because his strong Jupiter natally in this position, when it's transiting along and now is opposing his Venus, it actually is it's so well placed, it's giving strength to this position. So, I mean, he takes a lot of flack, but, he weathers the storm so well because, he likes the limelight. He's very competitive, like many other politicians that I've mentioned. He has Mars on the ascendant. And it's sort of an environment that he can deal with better than most others. The one sort of concerning thing that's coming up is he, by transit, increasingly over the next year, he's going to have an opposite or a square transit of Neptune to his sun. Okay, it is a square right now because you usually use a wider orb with the sun, but this is somewhat of a difficult transit because it can affect a person's sense of direction, their clarity. Some degree of uncertainty can start to build in their awareness, and there are some pluses to it that I'll get into at a later time, but that's the one sort of concerning element that I see him having to deal with over the next year or so. Okay, so let's see, why am I not getting rid of that? Oh, there we go. So let's move on. So this is the election. Donald is still in the middle here. This is the transiting planets on November 3rd. So what's going on? Well, in actuality, we have, things have actually, in my estimation, kind of even improved and are even more positive for him at that time. Now, I'm just going to state up front right now that I wish we had more people running for president. I wish we had higher caliber people running for president than we have right now. But let's try to be neutral. I'm going to be objective here. And the reason I say it's even more positive for him is because now we have Jupiter and Pluto transiting conjunct, but they are now 150 degrees away from his sun, which makes it even more personal, that time period of, for potential success, okay? We were just talking about an opposition currently between these two planets and his Venus-Saturn conjunction, but now they have gone retrograde. They have been moving backwards, at least by appearance, in the sky, and now they are 150 degrees away from his sun. So it is a stronger aspect for experiencing, more success in one's life. So let's see. But in addition, I could point something out, and this is up for debate. What I'm going to say here is that while these Pluto and Jupiter have been retrograde, so has Saturn, okay? And now we have Saturn actually coming back and opposing his conjunction here. Well, this is more challenging, okay? And I think it's a judgment call for an astrologer to say, do the pluses outweigh the minuses and so forth? All I can say here is that he was born with a conjunction of Saturn and Venus. So, which is a tough one because normally it's an aspect where people end up experiencing quite a bit of rejection, or actually having, on one hand, he's got very positive wealth building skills and capabilities, but this also indicates that there's going to be problems dealing with money or problems dealing with relationships that he's going to have to surmount. Well, he's used to that by now, okay? He's learned how to live with these things of dealing with rejection, of dealing with people not liking him, okay? And now it's just a little bit more pronounced than it is, normally. And in my estimation, because he's had to deal with this his whole life, having Saturn opposite Venus is not a big deal. It's not as challenging as it would be for someone else. So the last thing I'll note here is that on the day of the election, approximately I just arbitrarily pick 7:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do have Moon conjunct Uranus, close to that. And there's a range of possibilities here. There could be a surprise, a shock. He could expect to win and he could lose. But Uranus also just deals with excitement and extra nervous energy. So that's what it may be pointing to. These other things, the Jupiter, Pluto in conjunction, are really stronger elements in my estimation. Other people may see it differently, but to me, on balance, it looks like his chart is fairly strong. And that leads me to a quick little lesson into declinations, and I'm going to use the election to point out some things as well. So these are screenshots from an iPad application that I have that's called Astro Gold. It's a very sophisticated little astrology program. I think it still costs only $30, and it's well worth it. So here, this is a drop-down menu, somewhat hiding the charts that we were just looking at. And this is Donald Trump's natal information. So this is the position of his planets natally, just listed in a column. But in addition, we have this factor called declinations, which is abbreviated here. Now, just as an analogy, I won't go into a lot of detail, I just don't have the time, but as an analogy, declinations are sort of similar to, like when we're trying to position something on the planet, you look at longitude and you look at latitude. Okay, declinations are somewhat analogous to latitude for positioning the planets, okay? And you can examine declinations and see if there are, the same. It doesn't, in my book, it doesn't matter if it's north or south, but if they're the same number here, so you see the sun and moon are at 23, Venus is 2240, so it's very close. Uranus is 2256, so it's all of those would be called parallels in the declinations. Well, declinations, my whole point in bringing this up is declinations can be used like transits. While transits are dealing with the longitude and comparing the longitude of existing planets with one's natal longitude, you can compare declinations with one's natal declinations, the current transiting declinations. And we're going to use the election as an example here, just kind of briefly, because while there were some negative things in his transiting chart related to the election, when you add the declinations, more positives sort of are added to that side of the column. And so when we look at the declinations, the transiting declinations for November 3rd, what do we come up with? And we have to compare it with the natal, so I'll be jumping back and forth here. Well, we won't. The moon moves pretty fast, so we're not going to really look at it. But we do have Jupiter, 2210. We have Pluto, 2238. And let's see. I think those were the primary ones that I was looking at. So we have Jupiter and Pluto that are parallel, just like they're conjunct by transit, but it's not always the case that they're in close parallel. So we have them parallel, and we have them parallel to Venus in his natal chart, 2249. And they are wide parallels to his sun, okay? So in addition, by transit, we have that same combination, Jupiter, Pluto, interacting with his sun. We see it also in declinations. In addition, and this is my main point, we see it also affecting, in a positive way, Venus, mostly because of the addition of Jupiter being in combination with Pluto. So that Jupiter-Venus combination in the declinations is a strong element of, an upbeat, happy, confident, successful time period for him at that time. So I could be wrong. I'm just, trying to point out what I see. And again, I wish we had 4 different people. We could vote for 4 people on that particular day and had more choices. So let's move on here and look at some charts. Dow Jones. Okay, it has moved higher than I thought. I've talked about a 50% retracement, which is that green line right there. If you're new to this station, I combine technicals with astrology. The key astrology dates are the horizontal lines, okay? And they're really used best in conjunction with the technical analysis, and also the fundamental analysis is also operating when I look at these things. We have come a long ways. We are up to almost the 61% retracement level. We are hitting some resistance right at that point. I've drawn in a number of lines here just to fine-tune it for resistance levels. But we're also hitting the 50-day moving average, which is this line. Sometimes I use the 65, but the 50 to me seems to be fitting better right here. So in addition, coming up, as I look at my notes, on Monday and Tuesday, we have 2, I didn't draw 2 lines in here, but we have 2 strong aspects. And one is quite a strong reversal energy, typically, and I'm underlining normally, typically. So we'll just have to see, but we could be getting a reversal right here, and I think we're a little bit overdue. When we look out further to May 8th, when we get all the way out to May 8th over here, this historically is a bullish energy, but sometimes we need a day or 2 confirmation to see what happens. If I was going to say what might happen, and this is not trading advice, this is just based on my research, we could get a pullback here. We could get, if this was just a start of a further rally, we're overdue for what might be called a 1, 2, 3 down pattern, which might even take us to this level, okay? But, if you've made some money at this point, you might consider taking a little off the table. Okay, let's look at gold. Well, gold you could almost say the same thing that I just said about gold, because we've had a nice rally. We are currently up above some resistance levels. 2 of them. We're up above this old channel line right here. We're up above this resistance level here. But we had a strong pullback on Friday, yesterday. We don't have any crossovers in the MACD. When you see a crossover, normally that can be confirmation that maybe something is changing, particularly if that crossover is taking place, in an overbought zone or an oversold zone, okay? We're not completely overbought in this indicator, the RSI. However, we've come a long ways, and we may be seeing a little bit of a pullback. To tell you the truth, I think it might be healthy to pull back somewhat, trade sideways. If we pull back and we reach this next astrology date, which is the 24th, and I'm going to confirm that with my notes, I could see the rally continuing because, again, from studying this for a long time, historically, this astrology energy for gold, specifically for gold, on the 23rd and 24th, which is Thursday, Friday, normally is associated with bullish upward movement in prices. Now, we're due for some pullback. I think it would be healthy, and I could see us bouncing once we get at the end of this next week. Okay, Bitcoin. Now the next several charts deal with cryptocurrencies, mostly because it seems like Bitcoin and Ethereum are a little stronger than I thought. They thought they would be over this time period. 50-day moving average, we've broken through it strongly today. It's true for Ethereum, which we'll look at. We have bounced. We had several days bouncing on some support levels. And let's see. I'm looking at my notes. Again, we don't have, as you can see here, there's not a lot of vertical lines going on. We don't have a lot of astrology, but the technicals are looking quite positive right now. And if we can trade up or if we can trade sideways, I see some volatility, maybe reversal happening as we get out to May 1st. That's typically sort of an energy that deals with reversals. But we could get some momentum building here, and possibly more on a fundamental level of viewing Bitcoin as a stable currency, one in which its supply is controlled, and in contrast to the dollar. So it can be viewed upon as being sort of a safe haven in a way when you're potentially facing some inflation down the road. So that's Bitcoin. It looks, technically at least, it looks quite positive. So let's look at Ethereum, which I don't look at all the time. And it is even stronger than the Bitcoin chart. I've drawn in this resistance level, this kind of connecting, particularly this previous intermediate high right here. It's related to some past levels, okay? And we have blown through that, particularly today. We're well above the 50-day moving average, okay? Again, even though my astrology is market specific, it bounced so solidly off of this support level that it's given people in this market some confidence that we're going higher. And if I look ahead, let me see what this Ethereum, and this is actually a very, very strong demarcation point of some turning point. So we'll see what happens. But if you're into Ethereum, you might mark down May 2nd and May 3rd. And so I normally don't list Ethereum, and I normally don't list EOS, which is another blockchain somewhat similar to Ethereum. It was designed to have a different sort of governing structure where 20 miners are voted upon, and they help handle policy decisions, in contrast to many other cryptos that don't have any sort of centralized, I mean, that's sort of a bad word in the crypto world, but there has to be, someone has to make some decisions at some point, and to adjust things and to update things. And EOS has decided to design their blockchain in a way that there is a kind of a governing body in a way. Plus, it has many applications. It's quite fast, and I do. This is to full disclosure here. I do have some money in EOS, but I wanted to include it because it too, like Ethereum, like Bitcoin, looks like it could be breaking out. It has just broken out above its 50-day moving average. It bounced well off of this support level. So these things are you need to keep an eye. If you're in the crypto world, things look fairly positive right now. Now, if you don't own crypto, well, crypto is like gold. If you own it and you're storing it in a safe place in a hard wallet, then it's yours. You don't have anyone between you and that, currency or money or store of value, whatever you want to look at it. Okay. Well, it's similar to gold. There's an old saying in the gold world: if you don't You don't, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And that being said, I was going to point out that in the trading world, in the markets of securities and stocks and so forth, there are vehicles you can use to at least gain some exposure to cryptocurrencies, specifically, primarily Bitcoin and Ethereum, because this is a fund that was created, and it's called Grayscale, and this is the symbol for it, and it is a Bitcoin fund. And it too, it's very volatile, like cryptocurrencies. So, if you don't have a lot of funds to trade with or to invest with, and losing, you just can't. What's the saying? You don't want to be trading in this particular fund with money you cannot afford to lose, because the volatility here is really amped up. However, as a secondary option to outright owning Bitcoin or Ethereum, you do have this, this fund that you can turn to. And it is trading a little bit lower relative to, here's the 50-day moving average. So it's trading a little lower, apparently, to where Bitcoin is, relative technical basis. However, it will just follow how Bitcoin is trading. So I see a Monday bounce taking place here if Bitcoin continues its rally through tomorrow. But I just want to make people aware of Grayscale, and Grayscale also has a fund related to Ethereum, and its, I think I have it here. Its symbol is ETHE, and you can see it pushing up against the 50-day moving average. Ethereum itself is way high today, so if that continues through Sunday, because Bitcoin, these cryptos trade all weekend long, you'll see this fund higher on Monday as well. So that's it for today. My name is Stephen. I have a master's degree in psychology. Art is a serious hobby for me. I've been studying astrology for over 40 years. This should be actually 45 years. And I have been applying it to and researching the astrological advantages in market analysis for 25 years. So anyway, that's it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. I do this on a weekly, bi-weekly level. It's a little unpredictable, so being notified might be helpful. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.